11:02, we're going to start our first of 6 virtual candidate meetings with the Democratic contenders for New Jersey 7th Congressional District. Brian, I think when I use the word contenders, you should make like a strong fist. So for those who don't know me, I'm Maggie Savoca from OneNJ7. We're a grassroots, all-volunteer organization. We're committed to strengthening democracy, engaging voters, and flipping NJ7 blue. These meetings, I feel, are key to part of that effort. It's going to give voters the opportunity to hear directly from the candidates that want to represent us in Congress. Once we get through all of the meetings, as well as the gubernatorial election, we're going to invite the candidates to an in-person forum. So that'll be another opportunity for us all to get to know them better. Over the past few weeks, community members have submitted a wide range of thoughtful questions for the candidates. We've culled them down to about 10 core questions that will be asked of each candidate. The same questions in the same format. So the candidates have not received the questions in advance, so we can hear their genuine, unrehearsed answers. We're going to have them asked by attendees here who volunteer to facilitate the conversation. We're going to ask that everybody try and keep questions and answers focused, to be respectful of time. We want to make this about 45 minutes, although we have an hour booked out. I just want to note that the meeting is being recorded, and the full set of recordings will be available after all 6 candidates complete. And you'll get the email, you'll get the link emailed out. We're asking that everybody not share the questions discussed today because questions have not been shared with the candidates in advance. We'd like to have that experience across all 6 meetings. Please keep yourself on mute unless you're asking a question. Before we begin the questions, we'd like to give Brian a few minutes to introduce himself and tell us a bit about why he's running for Congress. Thanks for coming, Brian. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Maggie, for organizing this, and OneNJ7 for being as active as always. Hello, good morning to all of you. And I just wanted stated on the record that I, for sure, am at least the only one who will not have the questions in advance, since this is the first round. No, joking there. So my name is Brian Varela, and I'll briefly share a little bit about my background here and how we got to this point. I myself am a first-generation Hispanic American. My parents are Colombian immigrants, very humble beginnings, right? Grew up in a very Hispanic household. Spanish is my first language. Kind of the stereotypical story, right? 8 folks in a 2-bedroom, and it was beautiful. Some of the most beautiful moments of my life. From there, my parents had a variety of blue-collar jobs. My dad at one point was a waiter, a janitor, a limo driver. My mom worked at a factory. She worked at restaurants. Eventually, they were able to reach the American dream. My parents were able to start a business. They bought a home, and they really did a lot. I mean, I saw what their work ethic was like to make sure my brother and I had the best chances in life as possible. And so it was great. My parents, sadly, as I approached college, 2007, 2008, they were not able to escape the Great Recession that we had at that time. And so their business took a serious, significant backslide. At that point, my parents had always committed that education is very big in my family, and it was all about college, college, college. That's how you make it in life, and they were going to pay for it. And sadly, when that happened, they were no longer able to. So I had to pivot. And so I ended up working full-time while going to school full-time. I paid my way through college, that in combination with Pell Grants, which is why it's so terrible what this administration is currently doing, because I was a beneficiary of those Pell Grants. Fast forward, I finished college, and as I'm transitioning into the corporate world, My mom sadly gets diagnosed with cancer. So I started in the corporate world in August of 2011, September of 2011. My mom was diagnosed with cancer. And so my parents ran that business together. And when she got sick, their business started taking an even more serious backslide, right? They never really recuperated from 2007, 2008. But my mom getting sick was really the death blow to their business. And fortunately, at the time, I was able to step up and be the breadwinner for my family. So at a very young age, I knew what it was like to deal with a mortgage payment. I knew what it was like to be behind on credit card payments. I knew what it was like to get bills in the mail and selectively ignore some until the phone call comes in and then maybe you'll pay it. So I dealt with a lot of that stuff at a very young age. Um, 2 years later, sadly, my mom passed. And when that happened, my parents' business at this point no longer existed at all. My dad was left in shambles, and I have a younger brother who's 10 and a half years my younger. So at that point, I really had to transition from being less of a sibling and more of a parental figure. And we made it out okay. Thankfully, we made it out okay. Fast forward, I then got into entrepreneurship. I started a marketing agency. From there, I jumped into childcare. So December of 2019, I put my entire life savings into a childcare center. And if anyone has a recollection of that time, COVID was approaching. So 3 months later, sadly, we were shut down. But I'm happy to report that we made it out okay, right? Fast forward to now, we've built over 100 jobs. We've got 10 locations across the country, across northern New Jersey. We are now, for the second year in a row, we've been awarded by Inc. Magazine, being one of the fastest growing companies in the country. New Jersey Business Magazine awarded me Executive of the Year. I'm on the NJ Biz Power 50 list for education. So we've done quite a lot. A bit more about my education. I've got my undergrad at a school whose name I will not mention. All I will share with you is that it may or may not be named after the father of a current congressional representative. I graduated cum laude. I was inducted into the Sigma Beta Delta Honor Society. I went on to pursue my MBA from UNC, and I'm currently working on my second master's from Seton Hall in international relations. And then lastly, on the grassroots side of things, I've been very active in politics for quite a few years now. My objective has really been to help as many candidates as possible. So I've been involved in municipal level races, legislative level races, county-wide level races, just trying to be a resource and trying to have as much impact as I can. I'm also the founder and the chair of the Morris Dems Hispanic Caucus. I'm an officer for my own municipal committee. And overall, just been very focused, especially in red leading areas, to start bringing about some change. Outside of that, I've got a daughter. She's 2 years old. Being her father has been the honor of my lifetime. I've got an amazing wife who's very patient and has been extremely supportive of what we're doing. And I'm very much looking forward to answering some of your questions.
Thank you, Brian. Okay, so as Brian said, we're going to move on to questions right now. And the first question is going to be asked by Margaret Illis.
Good morning. Yes, it is still morning, isn't it? So I'm a longtime resident of, let me just start my video. I'm sorry. I'm a longtime resident of CD7 and have been involved in the grassroots and was involved in flipping to Tom Malinowski. So my question is, what in your background and experience would make you suited to represent CD7 in Congress? And why would you be a better choice than other Democratic candidates?
So I think that this moment in time, our party and really our congressional representation, we really need a fighter. And I've been a fighter my whole life. And I shared a little bit about my backstory, but I fought to pay my way through school. I fought to keep my family afloat when my mom got sick. I fought to build a business from scratch. I've been a fighter, and I think that this moment in time, it requires more than just diplomacy. Diplomacy is something you absolutely need, but you also have to have the ability to roll your sleeves up. And I think we're starting to see that now as the year has been progressing. We're starting to see people become more vocal. We're starting to see people put up more of a fight with a lot of what this administration is doing. And that's me, right? And I've been a fighter my whole life, and that's the fight that I'll bring down to Washington. And as far as how that differentiates me, I think that a lot of my lived experiences have prepared me for this moment. I also believe that I'm a builder, right? I've built a business from scratch with my own hands, and in a lot of ways, that's an extremely challenging task. It's a very challenging mission. I've been able to do it, and I've been able to do it effectively, and I think that speaks to my resilience, my determination, and I think that those are qualities that are extremely important, especially in the current political climate that we're facing.
All right, Brian, thank you. We're now going to move to, I believe it's Stephen Leffley, although he might be under Joyce's account. Stephen, are you there? And can you oh, yep, there you are.
Yep.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, but watch out for the bear.
Yeah, okay. Where's my question? Oh, I just had it all keyed up. Wow. Where is the question? Okay, here it is. So, Brian, what would be your top priorities as a member of Congress, and how would you effectively pursue them as a first-time representative? What committees would you think you would seek to serve on, and why?
I'm a big believer in investing in things like education. So I think education is absolutely one of my top priorities. I think that as a society, we've evolved where we were very focused on college and getting your bachelor's and folks pursuing their master's. And as society has evolved, we really have taken our eyes off of the trades. And I think that as a country, we really need to come together and celebrate the trades, not only because that's the path for a lot of people, that it's much better than, they're much more suited for it than they are for college, but it's also really critical for our society and our infrastructure. So I think that when it comes to education, we need to open up more avenues for folks to get involved in the trades. I think that things like student loans need to expand to give people more options. I think that we need to really champion shorter term programs that'll allow folks to get into areas like plumbing, HVAC, et cetera. I'm also a very big believer in universal childcare. And I think that when it comes to universal childcare, it's a matter of, there's a lot of reasons why we need it, but I think that you can make a very strong case around the economics of it. And as I talked about what it's like to invest, we talked about investing in education. Studies have shown that investing in education yields a positive ROI for us as a society. And I think that you can make an entire case for why we need to invest in universal childcare, starting with the fact that you're letting parents work. You're allowing parents to get into the workforce, to seek careers, to seek an education. And if we're talking about just generating more income for their family, these families, they're not investing that extra income in stock buyback programs. They're actually spending that money in the local community. So what ends up happening is they're strengthening not just their own financial well-being, but they're also investing into local businesses, which is, as we all know, is the backbone of the country. I think that when it comes to the furthermore on the investment side of it, for every dollar we invest, we're getting a positive ROI, which means that every dollar we're investing into these kids, we're preparing them better for school, right? Going into kindergarten. And they're starting off on a better foot, which means that they're more likely to have a successful experience throughout the school system. And ultimately, what that's going to lead to, right, is a more productive, more effective society. And so if we look back at when we have had the strongest economic booms, what you will see is that prior to that, it was a very heavy level of investment into things like infrastructure and R&D and also education. So I think when it comes to universal childcare, what that will ultimately lead to is a wider middle class, stronger economy, and more jobs. I'm also a big believer in electoral reform. I think that as a country, we have a lot of issues. I think that there are a lot of issues that we will currently, based on how things are working, are not going to be able to solve. And so I'm a big believer in taking money out of politics and campaign finance reform. I think that Citizens United has been single-handedly one of the worst things that's happened to our country. And as a matter of fact, you can tie a direct link to Citizens United and the attack on reproductive rights. I'd like to see a different form of voting. I'd like to see something like star voting or ranked choice voting, which is my preferred method. And I think that implementing some of these electoral reform measures will actually lead to a less politicized climate. It will lead to better representation. And then ultimately, it'll lead to a situation where we can now tackle the bigger issues because we are going to be able to sit down and have conversations around them. And then as far as committees are involved, as an entrepreneur, I'd love to be involved in anything that involves business, especially small business and education.
Great, thank you. Our next person up asking a question is Joan Peters.
Good morning.
Hi, Joan.
Hi, it's great to be here. And so far, I'm really impressed. So, as you know, '07 is a district with 20,000 more Republicans, more registered Republicans than Democrats. The past two candidates have been unsuccessful, and much of it to me seems to be based on Kane's name recognition. What is your plan for winning the election in NJ07, and what would you do differently?
So I think that as a party, we have been very effective and very skilled at Kane and Trump bashing. And that's something that we obviously need to continue to drive home. But the part where I think we've had a very big opportunity as a party nationwide is that we haven't really effectively explained what we're going to replace the current situation with, right? So we're destroying the current reality, but what are we replacing it with? And I think that that's really where we've had the biggest opportunity. And what we need to circle around is an economic populist message. So I think back to when Kamala Harris lost, and Donald Trump beat us for a variety of reasons, but one of them was that folks felt more connected to Donald Trump. And why did they feel more connected to him? Because when Kamala Harris was asked about the economy, as an example, she said the economy was doing great. And she wasn't wrong. By all economic indicators, we had low unemployment, the stock market was up, it was doing good. But as a party, we became so disconnected from working class voters that we failed to realize that most working class voters don't have a stock portfolio, right? They're not invested in the S&P. They don't have a real estate portfolio. So the only things that they're seeing go up is the cost of food, right? The cost of rent. So when there's someone saying that the economy is doing good, and that's not my reality, that's not my interpretation of what's happening. And there's another guy who's a little crazy, but he's talking about the price of eggs. Okay, maybe I don't like him, but he at least understands what my struggles are. So I think that for us, when it comes to flipping NJ7, it's focusing on an economic populist message, because ultimately, while people care about all types of issues, they can't care about other issues if they're concerned about their own well-being, if they're concerned that they're going to be able to put food on the table for their families, right? And I think that as a party, we also not just focus on an economic populist message, but we can tie a lot of our issues to it. So I used universal childcare as an example before, but there's a lot of examples like the environment. This is for every dollar that we invest into preventative maintenance, we're saving $6 on emergency repair costs. That is not an environmental issue. That is an economic issue. And if we can make those types of cases to voters, showing them that this is going to have a direct impact in your tax rates, and we're going to keep your taxes low because we're going to make the right investments at the right time and not wait for a disaster to happen. Those are the things that are going to appeal to people. So I believe for me, it's an economic populist message and driving it home.
Thanks.
Brian, thank you so much. Moving right along, we're going to have Dan Murphy ask a question.
Hello, had to find
There you
the
go.
unmute button. This is going to be one of the focus races in the country, and therefore a very expensive race. So I'd like to ask, what sources of campaign funds would you be looking to tap? And also, how much support from the Democratic Party, as in, would you be seeking the endorsements of county organizations? And I know you already have some endorsements from some Morris County Democrats, but the county committees, the state organization, how would you be approaching them?
We can't flip the seat without everyone on board. So our strategy is to go and screen at every single convention and fight for every single endorsement. And as a matter of fact, a lot of our strategy currently revolves around that. So we're not just focused on fundraising right now, but we've been very focused on getting connected to these committees, connecting with municipal chairs. We're figuring out what issues they're facing. We're figuring out how we can help their races, because our race isn't until next year, right? So a lot of folks, I think, are making the mistake that they're only focusing on NJ7 right now. And I think that there's a way to do both, where you can focus on NJ7, but you can also help. For example, we have Jack Ciattarelli is a real threat to the future of New Jersey. So it's really about how do you layer your tasks and what you're working on that'll also benefit everyone this year. So I think for me, when it comes to building relationships with the county committees and ultimately seeking their endorsement, we're not waiting until next year, right? We're doing the work now. And if it comes, it comes. If it doesn't, it doesn't. That's fine. Ultimately, we're working to help democracy. But for us, it's about helping as many candidates as possible, from all the way up from legislative races, right? Obviously, the governor's race, all the way down to, a council position at a local municipality. As far as funding goes, right? We're just working the fundraising circuit. Candidly, we're actually exploring some alternative strategies, because we think that when it comes to this district, we really want the freedom to not have to worry about specific types of donors or PACs or corporate PACs and things like that. So I'll kind of give you that teaser on it, and we haven't made any final decisions yet. But at the end of the day, when it comes to this primary, we're going to be funded. We're going to be competitive. I won't dare say we'll be the top fundraiser, right? You just never know. But we're going to raise enough to be able to mount a serious competition. And then as far as the general goes, as you mentioned, this is one of the very few competitive districts in the country, which means that once we get through the primary, we're going to be getting a lot of national attention on this race. And I mean, this race I'm estimating this is going to end up being a $15 million race.
Thank you, Brian. Yeah, kind of gets back to that thing about Citizens United, right? And how expensive these campaigns are becoming. I'm actually going to ask the next question. So I know you're very aware of how diverse CD7 is. We have very rural and very urban areas. It's diverse in many ways. And I'd like to ask you how you are going to work to connect all those demographics that sometimes have different interests.
That's actually been one of the things I've enjoyed the most about this race, because we have been getting out there and we have been talking to, we've got people out in rural Warren County. We've got more of a city vibe out in the eastern part of the district, in Rahway and Linden. And I stick to what I said originally. It's an economic populist message. It's just a matter of how you get there, right? So when you're talking to farmers, right, and you're talking about competition from Pennsylvania and the different regulations that are benefiting Pennsylvania farmers, that are making them more competitive than New Jersey farmers, right? Those are real conversations that we need to have, so we can help small rural farmers in that part of the district, ultimately leading back to an economic populist message. But when we're going to the other side of the district, right, we're talking about, what are their rents looking like? What are wages looking like, right? Are they able to if they have kids, are they saving money for their kids' college, right? And then it's what are the policies that we can enact to accomplish a better economic standing for these families. So it's different routes, but it's ultimately landing to the same priority, which is the economy, right? Affordability. It's just different avenues to get there depending on what part of the district you're in.
All right, thanks for that response. Next up is BC Conley.
Good morning, Brian.
Good morning.
Before my question, I need to note that my wife also put herself through college with the assistance of Pell Grants, and she's a proud graduate of that very same university, which will not be named. And my question is, if you were elected and the Democratic Party took control of Congress, what actions would you favor to reverse Trump's policies? Would they include impeachment and removing Trump and other administration officials?
Yes. Yes, all of the above. I think that what the Republican Party and the Trump administration has done to this country is absolutely terrible. I think that they have no regard for the law, for our Constitution. They have no regard for voters, right? I mean, they're selling them a bad bill of goods. So as far as I'm concerned, no option is off the table. I think in the short term, immediate, right? If we take back control of the House and we're able to throw our weight around a bit more, I think it's figuring out ways to reverse some of these catastrophic decisions that they're implementing with the big, beautifully terrible bill. I stole that from Cory Booker, by the way. And I mean, ultimately, it's a tax system that does not work for our country. It does not work for the future of our country. It does not work for the majority of our country. The cuts in things like Medicaid, it's going to serious. Like it's for me, one of the things that hurt the most recently is I saw a video of folks that are Medicaid recipients handcuffed to wheelchairs because they're protesting this terrible disaster of a bill. And to me, it was just so shocking because these people aren't there because they're brainwashed or because they have nothing better to do. They're there because if these health benefits are taken away from them, they're going to die. They're going to die.
Mhm.
So for me, day one, there's nothing off the table. It's everything and anything that we could do to get our country back on the right track.
Good, thank you.
Yep. Thanks again. We have two more questions left. One's a follow-up kind of to what BC just asked. So would you push for improving U.S. relations with NATO, the EU, and other allies despite the Trump's administration disdain for those alliances?
Absolutely.
Okay.
No doubt in my answer there.
Okay. And then this is the last one that we have, and maybe if anybody has follow-up questions to answers that Brian has given, we can do it that way. You know, we can open it up if Brian's okay with that. So last question, Brian. What could or would you do to help those who stand to lose Medicaid, SNAP, and other benefits due to the Republican cuts, the big bad bill that we were just talking about?
We'd have to figure out how to reverse some of these things. So this bill, it's been put together in a way that I think a lot of us are still not fully grasping it. To be very candid, I'm not exactly sure how much we can reverse at this current moment, but it's finding ways to do so. And I think there's also ways to reappropriate parts of the budget to go back towards some of these services. I think that it's I mean, it's tough because we would need to take back not just control of the House, but we would also need to take back control of the Senate to implement some meaningful legislation against a lot of these things. But ultimately, it's stopping the bleeding, right? If we take back control, when we take back control of the House, it's making sure that no more terrible legislation is passed through, and also working together as a party, right, caucus, right, to figure out what, if anything, can be done, whether it's leveraging courts, whether it's leveraging other pieces of legislation, to put a stop to a lot of the things that they're trying to do.
Okay, thank you. And I want to thank everybody who who asked a question. There's some
Maggie, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. I see Reggie has a question. His hand is up.
yeah, so this is what I'll say, and I appreciate the call out, Brian. So it's up to you, candidate. But really what we wanted to do was keep it as fair as possible. So what I was suggesting is that, you know, everyone's going to get asked these 9 questions. And if anybody here wants to ask a question on things already discussed, you know, that would be fair. But if you want to take off the cuff questions, I will not stand in your way.
It wouldn't be exciting if we didn't take off the cuff questions. The Republicans certainly don't plan on giving us safe questions. So let's jump right into it.
All right, let's have Reggie come off mute and ask your question.
Thank you, Maggie.
Yeah.
Brian, I believe you know Nick LaBelle.
Yes.
So I live in Phillipsburg. I First of all, I applaud you for running for office. I ran once. I was on the ballot in 2000, running for freeholder as a member of the Green Party. Joe Biden chose me to be his delegate in 2020 to the National Convention, but because of COVID, I did not go to Milwaukee. We had some small events here in New Jersey. I'm the former chairman of the New Jersey Democratic State Committee Veterans Caucus. I served for 3.5 years. I'm making phone calls for Mikey Sherrill every Sunday. I hope to increase that. I'm making phone calls for Abigail Spanberger, running for
Reggie,
governor of Virginia.
I'm sorry if I could just interrupt you, just in the interest of time, because I see other hands going up. If we could get to questions, I'd appreciate it.
Yes. So my question, I just wanted to let Brian know who I am. So Brian, for me, my most important issue is the farm workers, the farm laborers who put food on our table. As you know, New Jersey is the Garden State. And we would not have food on our table if it weren't for the 1 million illegal immigrants we're sitting in air conditioning and they're out there working in the fields. So I'm going to challenge you like Cory Booker did in June of 2022 to find a farm, to take a camera crew, to hold a press conference, and you go out there for 8 hours alongside those farm laborers, because you're going to tell the American people the reality that if Trump deports these people, you're not going to have food on your table. So I'm challenging you to be that brave, to contact Cory Booker and make arrangements and take him with you and go out there and pick lettuce. Go out there and pick peppers. Go out there and pick in the 90-degree sun for 8 hours, for 12 hours alongside all those farm laborers. Half of them are legal, half of them are illegal. And if you want to call me, you can get my phone number from Nick LaBelle. So that's my challenge to you, because we lost the election in 2024 because Kamala Harris had no answer for the last comment, Maggie. We lost the 2024 election because every night I saw the commercials on TV about the illegal immigrants. They're all rapists. They're all gang members. Kamala Harris had no answer. And the reality is 9 million illegal immigrants are living in this country, working every day. 500,000 illegal immigrants live in New Jersey, and 3/4 to 80% of them are working every day. I
All
want you to
right,
go out and work. I want
Reggie,
you to go.
let's give Brian some time to
Yeah,
respond.
I want you to go out there and work
We have
alongside those
five
farm
more
laborers.
people asking questions. Brian, what's your response to Reggie's challenge?
Challenge accepted. I entirely agree with you, and I think that we have lost complete sight of just the serious. I mean, again, focusing on the economy. If Trump got his way, we're talking about spending north of $500 billion to do what he wants to do. And that's not even including the impact it'll have on our economy by losing that labor. So I'm entirely on board with you, and challenge accepted. I'm gonna figure out which farm to go to, and I may reach out to you for if you can point me in the right direction. But I would happily. I may not bring a film crew, but maybe a couple of iPhones and a microphone to get us through the day. But yes, I appreciate the thought. I appreciate the comment, and it is absolutely something that I look forward to doing.
All right, great. So I put the Q in the chat. So Ted's up next, Ted H.
Ted Hoff.
And
here
Ted,
from
I'm so
Bergen
sorry to
County.
interrupt. I'm so sorry to interrupt you real quick. Maggie, if we could just wrap up by 11:40, if that's okay. And
Okay,
I'll try to be concise in my answers.
I have a short and easy question. Since you just began your MA program in Seton Hall, who is your favorite scholar of international relations and why?
Man, you got me there. um, if I could tailor the question to because I can't think of a specific scholar, but there are theories and ideas that I've been exposed to that have really widened my view of the world, right? And I think that one of the schools of thought that I just it was never something, it was never an option to me. I didn't know it existed, is realist theory, right? And while I don't fully ascribe to it, I don't think that everyone is a rational actor on the global stage. Like to me, I think that it's a lens that we can use to look through when we are managing international issues, when we're managing international crisis, right? When we're managing the possibility of war. I think that something else that I've learned through my program is that it's also not always just black and white. So we're realists. It's pretty much chess, right? It's game theory. A lot of it is game theory. But then it's also the impact that society and culture has on a government's decision-making process, right? Where we think well, let's be rational. What's in the best interest of the country? Well, they're going to do what we want because that's in their best interest ultimately. That's not how it works. There are countries that are very prideful in their culture. There are countries that may not make the best decision that's a decision that's in their best interest, but because for them it's not about what's in their best interest, it's about having autonomy, having respect, etc. So for me, it's really been the several different lenses that you can look at international issues through to get a better understanding of what could potentially be the best path forward.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. That's definitely a question for another time, or a discussion for another time. Regina, you have a question.
Thank you. Actually, this is Edward, Regina's husband. Brian, thank you for putting your hat in the ring. I believe that the climate, the environment is the #1 issue that's facing our country and our world. And I would ask you, as an elected member of Congress, will you consider the climate first when you vote? In other words, will you give the climate a preferential option in your vote? Thank you.
Thank you. I believe so. I think that for me, climate has a lot to do with the economy, and I don't think there's any climate-related decisions that are not ultimately in what's best long-term for not just us as a planet, but even for the question of affordability, right? I cited what a preventative investment in infrastructure, how that affects tax rates and things like that. And I think that, the strategy you just saw in Texas, right? Like, I think that when we're making decisions that are not putting climate first, it ultimately goes back to the economy long term. Maybe short term, yes, there are short term decisions around affordability that I wouldn't agree with, but that people are looking. Oil is a big example, right? Where people are looking at, well, we need to and continue expanding on oil, and that's a whole other issue, right? Because we can't afford to let the economies tank, right? I think when it comes to economy and affordability, it's having the long-term view, and anything that is done that is not in the best interest of preserving our planet, our environment, ultimately we're going to pay the price.
Thank you.
All right, Brian, we have two more. Who do we say was next?
Yvonne.
Yvonne, there you are.
Yes. Hi. Hi, Brian. Thank you.
Hi, Yvonne.
Thank you for running. This last question had to do with our long-term viability. One of the aspects of the big bad bill that has been overlooked is the revenue side. We have all talked about the cutting side and cutting Medicare, and that's horrible, and the impact on everyone. But at some point in time, we have to generate revenue to be able to fund all of those programs that are going to give us the long term. Furthermore, we're really mortgaging the future for our young generation, and it's going to be very, very hard to continue with those tax cuts. So now that has a pretty negative implication for Democrats, because if we begin raising taxes, you know what the accusation is. How do you think, first of all, do you agree with me that we need to work with the revenue side just as much as we need to stop the cuts that are going on and redirect our resources? And number two is, how would you manage that? Thank you.
I agree. Thank you. Very thoughtful question. I agree with you on the revenue side. I think that there's a few ways of tackling it, right? the top tax bracket is currently 37% for anyone making north of $456,000. There's a few ideas that we're playing with here in our campaign, and one of them is a dynamic tax policy. And it's basically activating new tax brackets, right? North of 2 million, maybe we go to 39%, right? North of 4 million, we go to 41%. I mean, at one point, the effective tax rate, I think, was like 70%, actually 90 at one point, but in more recent history, it was as high as 70%, right? So I think if we were to play with the idea of a dynamic tax policy that is directly linked to the wealth gap, whereas the wealth gap widens more and more, we activate new tax brackets, and then the revenue from those tax brackets are earmarked specifically to go towards programs that are meant to narrow that wealth gap more and more. And basically, as the wealth gap narrows, we can actually deactivate some of those tax brackets, right? And it keeps the system balanced. I also think that there's a lot of tax loopholes, right? I think that when it comes to, I mean, you can look at the income side for people who are getting W-2s, right? But you also have to look at the business side of things. I think that there's some tax loopholes that we need to look at very closely. And I think there's other things you can do that actually, while it's not necessarily driving the revenue side, it's still going to lead to investment in local communities. And so, for example, the fact that a hedge fund manager can be invested in Apple, and a mid-level manager through their 401k could also be invested in Apple. And the fact that they're paying two different tax rates is absolutely crazy to me. So I think that when it comes to 401ks, I think it would be very wise to tax any appreciation in 401ks the way that investors are taxed on capital gains. And ultimately, that's really more of a tax rate for the middle class. It's typically the middle class that for the most part, that are going to benefit from that. And so they're actually going to be able to take that extra income and they're going to spend it in their community. And that in of itself, going into business, job creation, et cetera, that itself will actually fuel more tax revenue for us, which will help us with funding a lot of these programs. And we have other ideas like that, but those are two quick ones that come to mind.
So Brian, we have one more question and then we'll wrap it up. Sorry that we're over 11:40.
It's okay. No worries.
It's Stacy.
Hi,
Hey,
Stacey.
Brian. Hi, hello from Bridgewater. So I just had a quick question. I'm sure, as you are aware, that the climate lately filled with hate, a lot of right-wing propaganda is contributing to anti-Semitism in our country. We have CD7 has one of the largest Jewish populations in the state of New Jersey. We're home to one of the largest JCCs, and of course, the Jewish Federation of Somerset, Hunterdon, and Warren County. Tom Kean Jr. has been an ally. He, comes when he is asked. He participates in meetings at both at the Jewish Federation for updates, congressional updates on not just Israel, but anti-Semitism. And I'm just wondering, personally, I don't believe that. I believe it's a lot of like show and tell here, what he's doing. It's a lot of saying and not a lot of doing. So I'm wondering how you would help combat a lot of the things that the Jewish community is still concerned about and what you might do differently.
I mean, I think that when it comes to the Jewish community, really any community, like there's no room for hate. There's no room for hate. I think New Jersey is a beautiful state. I think most people in New Jersey are good. But sadly, yes, we're living in a reality where whether you're in Bridgewater or you're in Patterson, right? People no longer feel safe, and it is very much fueled by a lot of this online BS that we're seeing. So I think for me, it's there's I don't think people would be against strengthening hate speech law, any sort of laws that are meant to prevent hate crimes. I think hate speech is obviously a little trickier, sadly. But when it comes to our communities, we have to make sure that we're not just aware, but that we're investing in different ways to make sure that communities feel safe in their own neighborhoods, right? There's no reason why, like you hear about a lot about like synagogues being targeted and people throwing very dangerous things at them, trying to light them up. I mean, I think that when it comes to any proponents of, to anyone committing these crimes, I mean, forget the fullest extent of the law. I think that we need to make it very clear. We need to be very tough as far as when it comes to prosecuting these people, that it's not, we're not playing around, right? If we have no space for it, we will not allow it. And if you decide to pursue hateful acts anyway, we're going to come down very hard. And I would support any sort of legislation that would put a special emphasis on hate crimes to make sure that we root them out of our community. Cool.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Brian. And thank you, everyone, for participating and for listening, for being here today. So many of us are really concerned about this seat. And so it's great to see a nice group of people coming out to listen to this live. Brian, thanks so much for your very thoughtful answers. It's just always amazing to me how some people can think on their feet and answer questions, with thought and intelligence. So I appreciate that. Yeah, and I think that's it. Whatever your next meeting is, please feel free to move on. And again, thanks everyone for coming by.
And Maggie, I'm going to go ahead and drop my number on the chat. So please feel free to save it. If anyone wants to reach out to me after this, wants to talk further through any of this, I'm happy to hop on a call. So thank you all for making the time. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for OneNJ7 for putting this together. And I look forward to anyone who I haven't met on here. I look forward to meeting you at some point on the campaign trail.
Great.
Thanks
Thank
a
you,
lot.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maggie.
Thank you.
Did he put it in the chat? I didn't see that, but whatever.
Yeah, I didn't see it, but
Yeah, I'm not going to call him. That was great. That was great. I'm glad I was on live.
good.
So,
Yeah.
thanks, Maggie. I know how much. No, I don't. I can't even how much work that was. I know what it's just like just to do freaking postcards, and that's doing nothing.
Well,
Maggie,
Yeah.
can you remind us how we can access this again? The recording.
the recordings, they'll be
Yeah.
they'll be the links will be emailed out to everybody.
Okay.
We're going to wait until like all of the meetings happen, right? So it's 6
Okay.
meetings, because
Okay.
it's just another way to try and help
Yeah.
things stay as fair as possible, although it's really hard.
Yeah, I just have a neighborhood group that I would like to share this with. And but I understand why you want to wait. That makes sense. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming.
Thanks. Bye, sweetie. See you soon.
All right, everybody, I'm gonna hit the road. Take care. Thanks for coming.